Good day, everyone. I am my host Ronald S., BSBE Marketing Management, second year. Understanding of women's status and roles in any society requires an understanding of the sexual division of labor, of what works women and men do inside and outside of the home. Profiles of men and women activities are crucial to any discussions of the division of works between the sexes. Work or trabaho is often equated with any activities which generates cash income. This conceptualized of work has rendered women's domestic and subsistence activities virtually invisible and recorded in formal statistics on work and assumed to be unimportant. These modules discuss the silent features of the division of labor as it affects women from various socioeconomic classes, occupations, and industries, and within the context of local and international economic and social relations. What is the sexual division of labor? The sexual division of labor it refers to the differentiation in the allocations of male and female labors in the home and in the workplace. Labor is understood in terms not only of paid works performed to the market but also unpaid domestic work which performed largely by women. What is the sexual division of labor a problem? The sexual division of labor is often viewed as the material basis of women oppressions. It is an important problem for feminist analysis because it perpetuates male domination and female subordination. In capitalist society, there are two spheres of works. First, the public sphere, and second, the private sphere of the family. The public sphere is seen as a male preserve because it controlled largely by men, while the private sphere is seen as a female preserve since women are responsible for housework and child care.
I will discuss to you about the production-reproduction distinction and the sexual division of labor in agricultural economies. The production-reproduction distinction. At the base of sexual segregation, sex roles in the sexual division of labor is the production-reproduction divide. The realm of reproduction belongs to the domestic or private sphere and is seen to be the primary domain of women. Women everywhere are primarily viewed as homemakers, men as the main economic providers or breadwinners. And the notion of a woman's place is in the home is given crisp equivalent in the Philippines, as women are seen as pambahay lamang. And the women who are non-working housewives or hindi nagtatrabaho are still identified home in Filipino culture as the woman's place and presented as her primary occupation even if she works outside of the home. For the popular attitudes towards men and women's roles are best expressed by common labels people use. For men, who are able to attend their family's domestic needs are called family men, while the women who work outside for the home and they have interesting jobs and gain promotion are called career women. For the terms family women and career men and the seen redundant. The women of the least privileged classes by force of circumstance, they have to work outside of the home are culturally pressured to balance their family duties and the demands of their work over home and family is to risk they call deviant or unfeminine. And the reality of the double burden is the fact that women have to perform the greater burden of household chores, child care, and child rearing, as well as taking on paid work. For the domestic work is petty, isolated, monotonous, labor-intensive, and requiring unending hours of work. Unrewarding because it is unpaid and visible and is usually considered as not work. It has been estimated that women on the average spend 8.7 hours daily in household. They consider for the situation of the majority of women Here in the Philippines and other underdeveloped economies, for our country, women are especially those in the marginalized rural areas and urban poor colonies are overburdened by the basic problem of survival and the routine and the drudgery of domestic work. For the sexual division of labor exists in both spheres of production and reproduction, in wage and non-wage work, in the subsistence and non-subsistence economies. In agricultural and industrial sectors, the roles of the men and women are differentiated inside the home and outside of it. Here in the Philippines have shown that peasant women were more negatively affected than men by labor displacement caused by mechanization in land preparation, harvesting, food processing, and other technical changes. It is decreased for the labor demand for transplanting the new varieties or rice due to the introduction of broadcast or direct seeding, sabog tanim, has displaced many women transplanters. Transplanting of seedling is seen as a largely female task, while for the pulling of seedlings is usually done by men. The paid jobs in the rural areas are usually reserved for the men because of the belief that men have to act as the main breadwinner or that women are unfit for certain types of jobs. The women exclusion from specific farm tasks and their displacement from others, they were relegated to marginal agricultural work. The practice of pamamagpag or the gathering of leftover greens is a task made possible with the introduction of mechanical threshers. This is done by women and children for the household subsistence need. The situation of the urban poor women is peasant households bear the brunt of having to look after the subsistence of the households, especially in times of cash shortfall. The survival strategies vary depending on the position of the household and may range from backyard gardening, pig raising, doing piecework such as hat making, sewing or embroidery, managing a sari-sari store, or asking relatives and friends to short-term credit. And I will discuss the sexual division of labor in agricultural economies. The sexual division of labor in agricultural economies. Our image of a farmer or fisherman is that of a man. We equate hard physical labor with male labor, despite the fact that most female tasks, especially in domestic reproduction, are equally, if not more, strenuous, and that women perform that majority of agricultural work, most stages of production. Women in agricultural economies are ones who perform subsistence, farming activities to augment the family income. As unpaid farm hands or family laborers, wives and daughters of peasant families act as the main subsistence producer. We have two different of the sexual division of labor in agricultural economies. First, the gender division of in rice and coconut. Farming findings of 3 studies on peasant women in rice and coconut farms reveal a sharp differentiation between predominantly male and female productive work. Predominantly female labor is used in planting, in transplanting, weeding, harvesting, non-mechanized, threshing, selections, and preservation of food. Marketing for the household, buying farm inputs, and the selling farm outputs. Women are responsible for domestic activities such as laundry and taking of children and sick household members. Adult men are engaged in fewer tasks, but these are considered as the more strenuous ones. For example, land preparation, applying chemicals and fertilizer, seed bed preparation, all mechanized farm operations, hauling and transporting of goods, harvesting and dehusking and of coconuts, drying of copra, and occasional repair work on irrigation canals in this family home. Here in the Philippines, the married men in the villages studied average about 55 hours per week or almost 7 hours per day at work, broken down as approximately 20 hours per week in farm or wage employment and 35 hours a week in doing home chores. While the married women average a total of 70 hours per week on an average of 10 hours per day at work, broken down as approximately 10 hours per week on occasional wage employment in food crop production activities and 60 hours in home-related activities. Second, the impact of new agricultural technology on the sexual division of labor. Major technological changes here in the Philippines were introduced starting in the 1960s in response to the changing demands of the domestic and international markets. The import-dependent character of the new technology paved the way for the greater integration of the Philippines' agricultural economy into the world capitalist market. In the 1970s, the martial law regime introduced the Masagana 99 or rice and Maisagana or corn productivity programs encouraged by the worldwide campaign for production through the Green Revolution technology. The rise in corn productivity programs, technological changes in agricultural production, for example, direct seeding, use of machines, for example, tractors for plowing and harrowing, and the use of chemicals, for example, fertilizers, pesticides, and weedicides, while the mechanization of threshing, milling, and drying were introduced. Lastly, intensive activities as men take over machines and perform work which was previously women's manual task or when such work was transformed from subsistence to market production. 16 was the initial gender designation of farm task that automatically becomes a male area of work.
Good day, everyone. I will report the sexual division of labor in the industries. Second, sexual division of labor in the profession. And lastly, the sexual division of labor in the female-dominated industries and in the putting out system. The sexual division of labor in the industries. Within the industrial sector, women workers tend to be segregated into certain subsectors and into certain occupation within these sectors. In these jobs, women are typically lower paid than men, found in the lower ranks in the hierarchy of power of authority, defined as less skilled or less competent and have relatively poor conditions of work. For instance, sewing, embroidery, and assembly line factory work, which are routinary and requiring dexterity of fingers, are seen as female works, those perpetuating the view that women are more patient, more tolerant of routine, and more easily controlled. Women workers are also exposed to a number of job relatively health hazard. Women workers in garments and electronics complain of poor eyesight, reported adverse chemical reaction, and suffered respiratory diseases. Segregation of men and women in the labor market goes hand in hand with male-female wage differentials. There is the general assumption that women are not the major family breadwinners and those could be given lower pay. Women generally receive lower wages than men in all industries and types of occupation within it. Data from the National Census and Statistic Office or NCSO for the last quarter of 1986 shows that female workers in all areas of work except clerical and professional receive less than male workers. Female sales workers receive 96 centavos to every peso earned by males. Female service workers 59 centavos, female manager 29 centavos, non-agricultural production workers 17 centavos, and women agricultural workers receive 9 centavos. Approximately 83.9% of employed women are concentrated in the four lowest paid sectors of agriculture, non-agricultural production, sales, and services. They are the lowest paid in the lowest paid categories, agriculture and non-agricultural production, as well as in the highest paid category, managerial. There is discrimination in hiring, mobility, training, and promotion of women workers. It is often said that women are the last to be hired and the first to be fired, especially in jobs open to men and women. They have no security of tenure. They are less likely to be given steady training in technical skills, and the belief that women's work would be disrupted eventually when they marry, start a family, or for other reasons which create conflicts with their works. Sexual division of labor in the professions. Women and men are seen as fit for certain types of profession or work. Many of the occupations or areas of female work are clear extensions of their domestic functions and or viewed as suitable to certain female characteristics. Female professions such as teaching and nursing are appropriate for women's nurturing qualities and other carrying characteristics. Typing, clerical, and secretarial work are of an auxiliary nature and dead-end types of jobs. The clerical professions is dominated by females, and that while there are more female professionals, they are to be found in lower paying fields. More women are to be found in the teaching and medical professions, but just like in political positions, the number of women holding position of power tend to thin out as one goes up. The corporate, educational, and medical career ladders, there are more women in non-career government service while there are more men in career government service. Men hold higher positions in government and receive 20% more in salary than women in government. Sex education in areas other than salary differential also affect women professionals. The disadvantaged position of women in the corporate or world is less manifest yet more insidious. Women are generally seen as temperamentally unfit for top managerial position because they are too emotional or deviant. The manager hierarchy, largely composed of men, is biased in favor of people like themselves. That means men usually choose other men to be the top manager and executives. They also pick people much like themselves to be their prestige in order to ensure continuity in leadership. Women, like racial or ethnic minorities, are different and could be not ensure trust, loyalty, and conformity as much as men, nor do they have similar interests as values as men. Women managers in male-dominated corporations and organizations have little or no authority. Women in the corporate world are usually in routinized and less trusted positions, which are outside career mobility ladders. They are likely to be in paid staff position than in the line command, ones which offer greater prospects of upward professionals' mobility. Thus, while women in top position do the work to find out what is to be done and recommended, it's men who make the final decision on these recommendations. Apart from the material disadvantage for women of a sex-segregated job market, women workers are also vulnerable to sexual harassment in the workplace. Sexual harassment may range from the more blatant lie down or get laid off practice or some male supervisors or the case of women who literally have to sleeve their way to the and subtle the pinch in the buttocks during regular inspection hours. Housebound women tend to be more conservative in their political views and backward in their conceptions of women's rules than women with paid jobs. Levels in dissatisfaction among work women are said to be higher than the level of dissatisfaction of housewives. The work experience of women outside of their homes could have provided them with insights on their relationship to larger world, unlike full-time housewives who, has aside from being isolated from the other housewives, are engaged in privatized work then offered the prospects of seeing their real relationship to the economy. In all areas of work, women are likely to receive lower wages or salaries than their male counterparts. They are usually concentrated in low-paying routine types of jobs where are there poor working condition, less security of the tenure, and then prospects of promotion and mobility. They are usually discriminated against in hiring process in non-segregated jobs because of the possibility of work disruption or to provision of maternity benefits. Women are treated as mother actual or potential when they enter the labor market. It is this interplay between motherhood and economic production that limits women's labor force participation and weakens their position within the labor market. Lastly, sexual division of labor in the female-dominated industries and in the putting out system. Since the development decade of the 1970s, many countries in the third world have witnessed the growth of many industries that required the services of women workers such as garments, textiles, semiconductor and electronics, and toys and footwear industries. Women workers in the female-dominated industries are thought as of more docile, ready to accept low wages and having manual dexterity. They are also seen as more patient, more tolerant of routine work, and are more easily controlled. Women have to leave work in order to bear children, and this is most advantageous for firms which periodically need to change the size of the working force. They also do not work for periods of time long enough for them to engage in trade union work. Employers and capitalists derive more profits by subtracting or farming out production to intermediaries who in turn employ their own workers or subcontract this further to other intermediaries or directly to rural households. They do not have to shoulder the full production and infrastructural costs. Moreover, because this arrangement is paid on a piece rate basis, capitalists do not have to bother paying social security, maternity, or sick leaves and other benefits to the workers, thus escaping proper regulation or monitoring by the authorities. The subcontracting arrangement is the predominant in the garments industry. It is the women who usually take jobs like sewing or embroidery, since work could be done at home while they take care of the children and where children can help in their works. The absence of other meaningful forms of employment make rural women grateful to find such work. They are often unaware of the gross inequality and exploitation in such arrangements. Women in the subcontracting chain are usually paid from 50 pesos to 2 pesos per piece of embroidery on the baby dresses sold at $15 and $50 department store in the US and Europe. Often women workers in the factory and in the subcontracting chain are pitted against each other. The presence of larger preserve army of female labor in the rural areas willing to work for less causes a downward pressure on wages of regular workers and discourage women from the staging militant protest actions. And that's the end of the silent features of the problem.
Hello everyone, I'm Marjorie Fajardo Marino, PSBE Marketing Management second year student, and I'm going to discuss the explanation of the problem. First is biological determinism and the sexual division of labor. What is biological determinism? Biological determinism, also called biologism or biodeterminism, the idea that most human characteristics, physical and mental, are determined at conception by hereditary factors passed from parent to offspring. Then what is sexual division of labor? The sexual division of labor is the system in which all work inside the home is either done by the woman or family or organized by them through the domestic helper. In biological determinism and the sexual division of labor, the division of labor by sex and daily reproduction of people remain unquestioned and seen to be basis of other division of men, women's work. It is viewed natural and biological determined and that or later on nothing could be done to change it. Women are seen as the primary caretakers because they bear children and breastfeed them. A male and female can raise a baby, but cultural attitudes still prevail that a mother is the best parent to raise a child. The biological determinist point of view provides a popular justification in placing women in the role of caretaker. There is no proof that supports the assumption that women should be child nurturers or homemakers just because they give birth to a child. This has been challenged by development of new devices such as milk bottle and technology, growing resistant by women against forced or unplanned childbearing also support the arguments that this material instinct is learned. Biological standpoint often used in explaining the sexual division of labor is rejected favor of a more historical explanation without denying
Household structure and the ideology of the family is the learning about proper and more appropriate activities for boys and girls usually begins at home. For example, girls are taught by their mother of how to do good housekeeping, cooking, and motherhood, and these are often seen in the games they play. On the other hand, boys are not included in most of the daily activities, and they're taught by the carpenter, painting, and how to help around the house occasionally and is needed. Early forms of socialization within the family were replicated in schools and media. For example, job segregation by gender weakens the position of women in the labor market. It encourages lower wages for women and ensures the relegation to the domestic sphere. Women's work is commonly found in cheaper wage markets. Low wages in these jobs keep women dependent on men's wages. For example, such a situation encourages them to get married and before dependent on their spouse. The husband materially benefits from such a situation by receiving higher wages, preventing women from competing with them in employment and ensuring the provision of women and unpaid domestic work for the family. For example, male farmers dominate the Samahang Nayon or the Farmers Cooperative, the Agrarian Reform Beneficiaries Association, since the title are under their name.
So let's move on to the solution to the problem of the sexual division of labor. To give women work outside of the home does not necessarily emancipate them, but some views work as liberating because they see the problem simply as a function of the lack of women's inclusions in the development process. Hence, their proposal to integrate women into development by making them equal partners of men. Others reject the perspective that the problem is one of how to integrate women in development, that women are being left out of the development process. They argue that, on the contrary, the relations through which women are integrated into the process of development is the focus that must be investigated. The following are the structural and cultural changes which are necessarily for this type of society. First, education. Both boys and girls should have an equal opportunities to educational development, regardless of their social background. They should be prepared by the school for a society in which men and women share equal responsibilities in work, family, and social life. Second, work and employment. The right of women to paid employment must be recognized in all societies. They must be given full access to economic life. All forms of discrimination in relations to their access to jobs and professions, education, promotion, and job security must be eliminated. Third, trade unions. Trade union policies and programs must include the demands and inspiration of women workers, male and female union members, or the entire trade union movement must be united in the struggle for overall worker class demands and specific gender-related demands. Fourth, the media. Policies with regard to advertisement, print, and broadcast media should actively promote a positive image of women's roles and contribute to society. Sexist ads and programs which degrade women and discriminate against them must be subject to public regulations with to help strong public opinion and lobbying among concerned interest groups and sectors. Last, the social research and development planning. Social research and development planning are closely related. Data generated from the field usually become the basis of development plans for marginalized areas. This is a need for social researchers to rethink their concept of work, household, and similar categories which ignore women's roles and contributes to both domestic productions and productions.